Good afternoon and welcome to a Thanksgiving week edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, home of the ninth-ranked Louisville Cardinals football team. And in Maryland, my good friend, longtime friend, John Webster. John, how you doing this glorious holiday week?
Doing great, man, but you may not believe this torrential rain we have here in the DMV today. So it's a little wet,
That's right. That's right.
rainy, and cold. And then tomorrow the rain will go away, but the wind will pick up and it'll be colder. But still always a good day, man. Still always a good day. Good day to talk about sports. And I think we got some NFL stuff to talk about. But Garrett, we better say hey to the traffic cop, to the man, the one, the only, John Pitt. What's going on?
Hey man, I'm feeling great. Can't wait to eat. And I just saw the defending Super Bowl champs get exposed. So that means Dallas has a chance this year. I'm feeling great, man.
Yeah, yep. That's a great lead in because I didn't catch the end of the game last night, but I heard about how it happened, and I'll just say this: in both cases, but more toward the Philadelphia Eagles. For let's just say they admittedly have not played their best football this season, but yet here they are establishing themselves or reestablishing themselves as the NFC's best team and maybe the NFL's most resourceful team in terms of coming back last night, winning that game, and like John said, exposing Kansas City for not so much being a bad team, but exposing a team that's very, very vulnerable and showing other teams that they can beat them. I still think the line forms behind them in the AFC, but they are not invincible. And John Webster, I think it's kind of that typical thing where you see with a team a year after a Super Bowl where teams figure out how to beat them. And in Kansas City's case, you figure out how to either shut down their running game or just really slow down Patrick Mahomes and give yourselves a chance to win. Am I reading that correctly in your view?
Well, first thing I want to say before I get into Kansas City, Gary, you brought up a good point. They didn't play the best, the Eagles, but they keep winning. You know what? That's a sign. That's a sign of a very good team. And the Eagles are a very good team. They're absolutely one of the best. Now, it's definitely in the NFC, but probably in the NFL. They're one of the best. And hats off to them last night for going out there in that rain, that cold weather in Kansas City. And plus, that's a rough stadium to play in Kansas City. And they did.
Loud. It is so loud.
Yeah, they did their thing and they took care of it. Now, as far as Kansas City is concerned, I'll say this about Kansas City. Yes, you can say they're exposed, but here's the interesting thing about Kansas City, in my opinion. Who would have ever thought you'd be talking about an Andy Reid team that is going to pretty much depend on their defense? He's had good defenses, but this is a very good defense, and his offense is pedestrian at best. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have to lean more on this defense with Chris Jones and Spagnuolo calling the plays. On offense, Reed has always been somebody that has developed players. So when they got rid of Juju Smith-Schuster last offseason, they expected these kids to step in, and it's going to take time. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. Talking to Dante this morning, Dante said, well, they should have never got rid of Tyreek Hill. Fair enough. But Tyreek Hill was going to have to go because he was not going to fit into the salary that they wanted for that team. He was going to have to go. I think they should have kept Juju Smith-Schuster. He would have been a perfect complement to Travis Kelce. Perfect complement. And they don't have a complement right now. Last night, Kansas City's defense shut down A.J. Brown. And their tight end, Goddard, did I say that name right? Gary Goddard, whatever. Philadelphia tight end broke his arm.
Yeah. So, it sounds close enough, man.
Yeah, he's out. What did they do last night? They dialed up plays and went to Devontae Smith. Mm-hmm. Their third option. Kansas City can't do that because they need one of those receivers to step up. Now, also speaking of exposure, there was some exposure for the Eagles as well too, because Kansas City ran the ball successfully against Philadelphia last night. Philadelphia has Buffalo coming up. They have San Francisco coming up. Definitely San Francisco is a team that likes to play ground and pound, as I like to call it. They love to get that running back in there between the tackles, soften up the defense, then hit the sides with Kittles and Deebo Samuels. That's how, and Ayuk. That's how they play.
Yeah.
I think both teams showed a blueprint of how the other team can be beat. I think both teams did that.
Yeah. Well,
but I'll let me just say this one thing here. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No problem.
If you want to look at it, it is still too soon. But I can see Kansas City not making the Super Bowl. I can see that in the West. Now in the East, I think it's really going to depend on, I'm sorry, not the East, in the NFC. And Kansas City in the AFC. But in the NFC, I think it's going to depend on who has home field advantage. Don't know too many people that want to go into Philadelphia and boogie against them in January and December. Don't know too many people want to do that. So that's a rough one. But I think for the NFC, whether it's Dallas winning this Eastern Division, whether it's Philadelphia winning this Eastern Division, or San Francisco winning the West, whoever has home field advantage, in my opinion right now, and I can change. It may change again. I think that's who's going to come out of there. In that AFC, as good as Andy Reid is, and he's one of the best coaches in this league right now, in my opinion, he's missing something on offense. And I think that's going to be a hiccup for them in the playoffs.
You could start with the ground game, which they're missing. You know, you were talking about Juju Smith-Schuster being gone. That, can you name any running back on Kansas City that's capable of that ball control that worked for them last year? That worked for them last year. I can't think of one.
They're all slashers. They're all slashers. Pacheco, they're all slashers. Nobody has any weight to them, you know, I say weight, to get in between the tackles.
Yeah, I was trying to think of, what's that term, you know, say more north-south as opposed to east-west guys on that. And the thing, but yet, like you said, they were still able to move the ball on Philadelphia much like they did in the Super Bowl. And that's, to me, that exposed the vulnerability of the Eagles that everybody thought was corrected. I know that they've benched some players. I know that they've had some injuries, but they are still thin in that interior where teams can kind of push the ball on them. Or let me rephrase that, more like on the edge where you can get guys around there and gain yards. So that's something that they have to correct. I'm really surprised that in game 10 that you're still trying to figure it out if you're Philadelphia. The encouraging thing is they haven't done that. It's still a work in progress, but you know, here they are still atop the division and in all, you know, for all intents and purposes, atop the NFL, their conference in the NFL in terms of the team to beat. And that's an encouraging thing for me if you're an Eagles fan, that, you know, that they're still not there, but hopefully they're getting there. And usually those last 7 games, that's when you start seeing teams really, really put it together. I'm not really worried about Kansas City. I just feel like they're at a point now, they've got to really start figuring some things out, really trying to either change the scheme a little bit, maybe try to find somebody in that running back room that, you know, that can push it up the middle and, you know, and give them that kind of back that can get like 3 or 4 yards or get like maybe a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, because you really risk putting your quarterback in a situation he's not comfortable with more often than you really want to. if you have Jalen Hurts, you can do the tush push as much as you want to because he's got the beef up front. I think Kansas City has the potential for that, but they really need somebody to run behind it because, as you said, they're more kind of an outside team as opposed to pushing it up the middle, and they need to figure that out of ball control because the one thing we haven't talked about is their lack of receiver depth. They're getting it done little, like a little dink and dunk, here and there, and they're relying too much on Travis Kelce, and he's not the same player. And when I say that, that's not a slap. It's just that somebody has finally figured out you got to limit him from doing the damage, and they're making him a non-factor at key junctures in the game.
I agree. I agree. But I think part of him being a non-factor, the options that Mahomes wants to have, he doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So if the other receivers aren't producing the way you want them to produce, then you're going to put 2 or 3 men on Kelce. Another thing that Kansas City is not doing this year very well, in my opinion, again, they're not closing games out.
Oh, no.
They were winning last night 17-7, lost 21-17. Didn't even score in the second half.
How many times have we seen that this year, though, John?
Yeah, it's not the sign of a team that can win a championship. If you can't close a game out, you're going to have problems in the playoffs, much less the Super Bowl. The game they had in Germany a couple weeks ago, they were controlling the whole first half on Miami. Then the second half, Miami almost came back and won the game.
Yeah.
They don't close people out. When you have your foot on the pedal, keep it on the pedal.
Yeah. I'll give them credit for some of the games that they won by being resourceful. But I think right now the most resourceful team and the most resilient team is the Eagles, just by virtue of, again, if they're hanging around in the fourth quarter like they were, I always felt like they had a chance, and they took advantage of it, and that's again that's the sign of a team that's getting it done even when they're not playing their best. And it's probably the only team that I've seen in the NFL right now that's been able to do that with consistency, with regularity, which is kind of an ironic word since you haven't seen consistency and regularity out of the Eagles in any phase. But they're getting it done. 10 games in, and I'm just waiting for another team from the AFC, Baltimore or Cleveland, do that. I've written off the Bengals. Once Joe Burrow got injured, I think we pretty much knew that the Bengals' chances were done. Although in that division, Pittsburgh hasn't really shown me anything. So John, I think you had mentioned last week that 3 teams could come out of that division. I'm not going to put that one to bed just yet, or excuse me, put the Bengals to bed just yet with that, because they don't necessarily have to be the division winner. They just have to be good enough or resilient enough to say, win 9, maybe 10 games or something and sneak in there as a wild card. That's where I think they are right now.
Yeah, good points made. Burrow's gone for the season. That's going to make it very hard for them. They got a very tough schedule for the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh today, I'm not much for changing coaches in midseason, whether it's an assistant coach or I'm not much for it. I think it, I won't say all the time, but some of the time it shows a sign of panic. Pittsburgh switched their offensive coordinator today. They let Matt Canada go. I don't know who the coordinator is, but this is how wild that is for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has not made an in-season change with a coach since the 1940s. So that's a sign that I just don't like that. To me, it shows panic, because you're in mid-season, what can you really change? Because you've gone over everything from the preseason. If you're going to really change everything, then are they going to be able to catch on that quickly? Or will the coaches be able to put something together that quickly? I'm just not for that. Cleveland, Deshaun Watson is done for the season now.
Right.
So that's going to be hard. I said 3 last week, and I was thinking 3 with Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Now I'm looking at 3 with Lamar Jackson, DT. What's the guy's name?
Yeah, yeah,
DTL or
DTR in Cleveland.
DTR?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know who it is in Cincinnati.
No,
And
neither
Pittsburgh
do
is
I. And I'm just right down the road. But
yeah, and
that
Pittsburgh still has Pickett. And see, but I'm a Tomlin guy, and I've told you that.
mhm.
I just
Mhm.
think he's going to find a way to get it done, even with Pickett, who is probably pedestrian at best at quarterback, at best. But he's still going to find a way with some smoke and some mirrors and some grit, some spit, and some bubble gum to get it done. He's going to find it.
Yeah. John, what this past weekend revealed to me on a number of levels, I'm just going to say it reinforced what I have always believed about the NFL, much the same way I believe it with the NBA, that out of 32 teams, you really only have 10, maybe 12 that are genuinely interested in winning games and contending for championships. And it might, it's really, it really seems like it's the same old teams, with the exception of Detroit, which is kind of a newcomer to the game, which is pleasing to see, because I feel like if there's any fan base that deserves some hope, it's the Detroit Lions. But other than those 10 to 12 teams, everybody else is just collecting a paycheck, including the Washington Commanders. And again, I know you have faith in them. I know Miles has faith in them. I'm just going to say, let's look toward 2024, as we've done in 2023 and 2022 and every year going back since, that whatever kind of impact, excuse me, that new ownership and whatever the brain trust comes up with, it's not going to be this year. It's going to have to be next year. It might involve a coaching change, and I'll say it like this: it will definitely involve a coaching change in Washington, because it has to. It's unacceptable for that team to score 14 points in 2 games against the New York Giants, New York's JV team, as you refer to them. I mean, it's just unacceptable. That's just ridiculous. And I still have faith in their quarterback, but there's something going on. I don't know whether it's the system. I don't know whether it's personnel. I don't know whether it's the play calling. But you and me, you and John, just the 3 of us, we should be able to score more than 7 points against the New York Giants.
First and foremost, let me say this to the New York Giants fans, to Eli White in particular. I am sorry that I've called the New York Giants the JV team. I will never, ever voice that again. New York Giants fans, please accept my apologies.
I know why you're saying that too, because of the team across time.
How can I, in good faith and good sound mind, have the nerve to call somebody a JV team, and the team that I am talking about, the Washington Commanders, cannot score, much less win a game against this so-called JV team? Mm-hmm. What does that make the Washington Commanders? Well, and my wife,
freshman team, the freshman team.
Well, you're better than what Kim said. Kim said they're a Pee Wee League team. So that's down there with the 6 and unders playing in the Capital Beltway League. Man, but anyway,
that's cold. Woo.
So hey, I won't say it anymore. I will say this about the Washington Commanders. I had that belief. They're not. I thought Riverboat Ron will be able to get something going. Obvious, they're not going to be able to do that. They're 4-7. They're playing the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. Dante's already voiced his concerns to me about the Cowboys possibly losing this game. Let me just say this right now. The Cowboys will win handily and solidly over the Washington Commanders on Thanksgiving. I will be totally shocked if the Washington Commanders are able to win. Now, I won't get into coaching, who will be the coach and all that. Gary, again, you know how I am about talking about somebody not having a job. But things are going to have to be looked at the end of this season. Decisions are going to have to be made. One of the things that this team continually does that I am not crazy about, they are pass first. I'm not saying Bieniemy has not been successful. But again, it is the NFC East. It is ground and pound, ground and pound. That's how you play in the NFC East. Open up the game and you got to pass to the flat. First down, pass out to the flat. You throw it out the flat. It's an incomplete pass. Now you got 2nd and 10. Now you run the ball 2nd and 10. You get 2 yards. Now you got 3rd and 8. Now it's just all. I just want them to run the ball more. I need them to run the ball more. I also don't understand how a team can have 9 sacks, and lose. Well, in a way, I can understand because the same team that had 9 sacks also had 5 turnovers. So I guess I can understand that. But the point I'm making, they're doing things to hurt themselves. Mm-hmm. You fumble, you get the kickoff start the second half, and you fumble on the kickoff. You try to overthrow somebody in the first half on your first drive, and you're throwing into double coverage, and it's an interception. At the end of the game, you're trying to go for a touchdown to win the game. You call yourself trying to throw the ball out of bounds, and it turns into a pick six because you didn't throw it far enough out of bounds. It's the little things you have to do in order to continue to win or start to win. It's the little things. Fundamentals. Understanding what you're doing, understand what you have to achieve. And the Washington Commanders are not doing that right now. Yes, I wanted them to win NFC East this year, Gary. We all know it will not happen. I was wrong. I was wrong for calling the New York Giants the JV team. Cannot call anybody a JV team when, as my loving wife says, we have a Pee Wee League team right here in our backyard. So, hey, it is what it is. I'm still trying. I'm still going to be right there. Still, I think they're on the right path with ownership. I think they're going to get it turned around. I think I'm going to come back home next year, totally as a Washington Commanders fan. But this year, they're just going to have to play it out and do the best can. I don't know if Riverboat Ron can get a win streak going on. I would say right now, no.
Yeah. And see, to hear you say that, John, you have finally reached a point of acceptance. I mean, you were in denial, you were angry, there was bargaining, what do they call it, those 7 steps of grief or something like that, that I'm glad to see you at the acceptance point. Again, with this team, and I didn't see the game because, we got so many games here. All I saw were, I followed the crawl on the screen, and it seemed like that score just never changed. It barely changed for the New York Football Giants, let alone the Washington football team. And I just thought, as a former season ticket holder, it's like for the ones that are trying to gut it out and hoping for something, that this has to be just absolutely brutal watching this team. And I think the breaking point for me with the NFL is that I saw way too much football. Thank you, networks, for really just giving us like a smorgasbord of potato salad, with raisins in it, in terms of games, because I can't think of any game, even with the Dallas game. I mean, I knew Dallas was going to win that game and handily, but I didn't see any game this weekend that really, where you just thought any team could come back or a team trailing could come back. I didn't see it between Baltimore and Cincinnati last Thursday, mainly because Joe Burrow got hurt. And once he got hurt, actually that was in Buffalo Wild Wings, grabbing something to go. And I saw when he went out. And John, I swear, it's like you could just feel the air just leave the room, and you just knew that it just wasn't going to happen. And any of these teams that were behind, I don't care which losing team it was, you just knew they were not going to put anything together to win a game or even make it competitive. And the thing I really want to see right now is some analysis of scoring in the NFL. It's got to be down because teams just can't move the ball. And to your point about the New York Football Giants, and now that you've taken the JV tag off of them, how about moving it across to the other locker room at MetLife Stadium to the team in green? The New York Jets are just absolutely pathetic, and that's a team that I have tried to have faith in over the years for a number of reasons. No, none of them now make sense, but it's just a team. There are just too many teams, John, that just can't get out of their own way. It's a 10-team football league.
Well, here's my question for you, and this is where I need you to help me. Explain to our listeners, what is the rule? What is the procedure in order to be able to be flexed out of a game?
It depends. Okay, let's see. So one, we're not in that month yet. That you generally see that in play in December as opposed to late November. So you may see more games flexed in and out a week from the day. And a lot just depends on what their playoff prospects are. So let's just say if you're the Detroit Lions and you've got a 1:00 game, you might see a game like that flex to either 4:30 or 8:30, depending on the importance for the playoff picture, for the divisional picture, or for a team that. Well, I'll just go back to the playoff picture. If you're a team on the outside of a wild card berth looking in, you'll probably be flexed, which is why I say the Buffalo Bills. Now, I will say this: for a 5-5 or 6-5 team like they are, that they are still worth watching because you just never know what you're going to get with them. One team worth watching is the Denver Broncos, who I guess now they're at 5-5. They're a 500 team, and nobody, and I mean nobody, thought that was going to be possible with the start that they have. And if you're saying that, you're lying to us and you're lying to yourselves because you just didn't see it coming. And you said this last week about Sean Payton. You gave him credit. You gave Russell Wilson credit. Actually, we both did. And I felt like, they were going to figure it out eventually. They're not flashy. They're not even necessarily exciting, but they're getting it done. And that's one of those things, again, they're showing that they're among, no matter what their record is, that they're among that dozen teams that really, gives a darn about trying to win games and trying to compete no matter how bad it looks. It's a long season, and everybody tries to say it's September. Well, if you got 2 or 3 losses before the first week of October, your season's over. No, it's not. 17 games, even with a bye, especially with a bye, that's a long time. And, if you got until the 1st of January to figure it out, you have time to figure it out. And I mean, I can point to just about any team in the league that has struggled and seems to be figuring it out.
I agree with you, but I guess I asked you about the flexing because it really needs to be moved up. The Jets have a situation where they got a lot of these games based upon Aaron Rodgers, and now they got Zach Wilson. Well, now they have Tim Boyle at quarterback, and it's painful to watch. They should not have been the Sunday night game. If I'm not mistaken, they have a Thanksgiving Day game, if I'm not mistaken. And then also, I know you can't do this, because Dallas is a standard staple on Thanksgiving Day, just like the Detroit Lions. But my goodness, the Commanders do not have any business playing on Thanksgiving Day. No business. I would encourage everyone to eat after the game. Don't eat before the game. That may cause you problem with your digestive system. So, but all jokes aside, these teams should not be playing in prime times. They should not. I know. I hear what you're saying. That's why I asked for an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
It starts in December. It may need to be moved up to December. And then when you have a situation like an Aaron Rodgers and your backup is Zach Wilson, you may need to look at that and figure some other things out with games. I mean, they've had a Monday night game. They really struggled. They had the Sunday night game. Honestly, Gary, when it was, well, no, was it Sunday night? Was it the 4 o'clock game? Either one. I think it was the 4 o'clock game. It was a late game.
With the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a 4 o'clock game, and
this is how bad this is, Gary. I don't know if you think like this. Buffalo was ahead like 12-3 or 12-0, and I knew the game was over because there's no way, as good as their defense is, you can't keep asking them to do what you're asking them to do. Basically, hold the team to 3 points or 6 points. That's the only way they can win a game because they can't do anything offensively. And that's just, I don't want to see that on a Sunday for a primetime game. And then like I said, I'm coming back to the Commanders. I'm enjoying what I believe Josh Harris is doing or trying to do. I'm enjoying it, but they are not ready for prime time, man. No sirree.
No, you're right. And it used to be with, let's just take Thursday night as an example, where Thursday night used to be a night where they just said every team is required to play at least one Thursday night game in the interest of fairness and schedule balance and all that stuff. When they came up with that concept in the 90s. And like what you said about maybe moving it up. I agree with you that I think flexing games, that's something that should have started this past Sunday, because again, you're heading into that stretch where some things are supposed to be falling into place, and you want to see the best teams playing in prime time or playing, at those best moments. College football somehow finds a way to get it done every single year, to have that one or two marquee games. I know, yes, there are more teams, but somehow CBS with the SEC, and I really hate seeing that network go away from SEC play after this year, but they always seem to have a game, even if it doesn't quite turn out to be that marquee game. But if you put a Tennessee up against Georgia, and Georgia's much better, Georgia just kind of toyed with Tennessee. You kind of thought Tennessee, if they could put together a couple of good drives or something like that they can compete, but Georgia is just too good. And some people might be disappointed, but they still stuck around till the fourth quarter to see what was going on. You have that in the college game, which you don't have in the pro game. And the NFL, again, as you said, they need to look at that schedule and say, okay, if we've got X number of games, and one, I don't even know why they even have a Friday game. That's one that they really didn't need, because that's college football day. They're going to get an audience because it's the NFL. Oh yeah, I know it's always about money, but again, in terms of interest and again, who's playing on Friday that anybody's really going to pay attention to, because everybody's going to be watching the rivalry games on the college side. And if it's like two teams that are like 500 or below, yeah, you might watch it for a little bit just because it's the NFL and there's something different, but it is not, you're not putting your best people out there.
I get it. I totally get it, Gary. Yep. Totally agree with you.
Yep. So we've gone on a rant about the things that we don't like. I'm going to wrap this up by saying, let's just be thankful for a lot of things. We have our health, we have our friends, we have our family. We pray for those that don't have the same things that many of us have. We pray that we can be that support system, John, do the things like you're doing with turkeys and such, and and distributing food. And we just have to keep in mind what we are thankful for. We're thankful for the things like sports to take our mind off our everyday concerns. And I just pray that, I personally pray, and I'll just say this for you and John Pitt, we just hope that everybody can just have a really good holiday, a peaceful holiday, enjoy each other's company with friends and family, watch sports, relax, take your mind off stuff, enjoy the long weekend.
Hey, Gary, I think you said it all. Everybody, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're all blessed to have another day here on earth. Thank you for watching the show, and we're going to see you all again real soon. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Take care.